Yes, I do remember saying that vaguely. I just had no idea when.
For the dominant religion.
Context is what determines effects.
The laws are slowly but surely kind of coming to a protectionism.
It might not be a great example because Muslims are drinking, but
I'm glad to make trouble where I can.
welcome to Left Hemispheres Podcast. It's Wednesday, October 3rd. The debate just ended a few minutes ago. With me, as always, is Steve.
Hello.
Adam.
Hello.
And Nick isn't here this week. He had to work. So we've got Andy from Laughing at Purgatory.
I never have to work.
About the debates.
Well, yeah, I didn't watch them because I didn't want to ruin my teeth and grind them into oblivion. I lasted 5 minutes watching it. And I just went, fuck this noise. I can't do it.
Yeah, I think that I probably should have done that. This one was dry as hell. Like, I know this certainly isn't Obama's strong suit. He can't talk business the same way that a multi-billionaire businessman can talk business. I really want to see the whole social debate. I want to hear him force this dude to look at the camera and be like, yeah, there's a large portion of you fuckers that I don't care about at all.
Are they doing are they going to do like a town hall one?
They're going to be doing a social debate, I know that.
That's where their major differences are. That's the other point, too, is that they're so similar in a lot of this stuff that it ends up just being minutia. But at least they seem to actually have like some well, they don't have manners with the moderator, but at least they have manners with each other.
Yeah, they just bowled all over Jim Lehrer.
Oh,
he had no control at all.
Well, that's the thing is that, my dad was a sergeant in the military during Korea, and he may have no legitimate power in any circumstance, but he would make bitches fucking listen to him, whatever he wanted to.
Yeah.
I didn't hear either of them say anything particularly interesting.
I don't know. I don't know if you guys are X-Men geeks. Are you? They went into X. Okay, you remember God Loves, Man Kills from back in the day, Christopher Claremont?
Yeah.
Well, there's a point where Stryker and Professor X is doing a debate, and Scott Summers makes a comment that, hey, Professor X is winning on points, but the man just doesn't fucking smile. And that's what I was tweeting tonight, is that Obama needs to look at the camera when he does the punchline and smile at people.
Yeah.
Obama really needs that. What is that comedy duo who does the Obama and his?
Was that Ken and Pell?
Yeah. He needs that guy.
Right. No, it was all very stiff for the 5 minutes that I was able to stand it. He just comes off as Obama was coming off as cerebral. Romney was coming off as angry as hell. And Jim Lehrer could not moderate the shit out of that, so I just bailed.
What I noticed about Obama is that it looked like he was actually being scolded by Romney at times. Obama actually looked like he was nodding and agreeing with Romney, telling him that he's a little bitch for all intents and purposes.
That when I see that in other instances, I'm sure that's actually just like a subconscious, okay, he's hitting the talking point that I prepared for. And so he just kind of smiles and nods, but then, it looks like he's like, yeah, that's right, yeah. I didn't watch enough of it. It was all very boring and dry and economic, and
I can't see that debate having any noticeable effect on the polls.
I don't think any of them will.
I heard a very good point today, just that as far as the few people who are the moderates or the undecided voters, that all the information is already out there, that if you're still undecided, then you're probably just not that interested. So those people who haven't made up their minds yet, they're not sitting down and watching the debates and then talking to their friends about it afterward and checking factcheck.org to see if the candidates are lying. All of this arguing and all this,
it's a small number of people.
It is a very small number. All this finance and campaign just thrusts into this handful of people who could really give a shit either way.
I agree that the people who don't know about the candidates are the same people who don't know what the Electoral College is.
Yeah.
So I just want to sum up quick here with 2 tweets from Moore and Ellis. Obama, life is grim and a constant horrible struggle, and here are all the numbers to prove it. Romney, I love the little people, and there are 26 million without jobs because this guy hates God and also I shit gold.
That's fantastic.
That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
It does.
Thanks, Warren.
All right, so this has been in the news a lot lately. Did Jesus have a wife? It was a 4th century scrap found, in the antiquity market, which is never.
I love the hell out of this story. Just because of what happens surrounding it.
It generated so many awesome quotes, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. And this was a post on Left Hemispheres a couple weeks ago. The money shot for me was a Baptist pastor from Tennessee and a professor at a theological college, and also a biblioblogger. His statement regarding this 4th century Coptic script claiming that Jesus had a wife was, "A statement on papyrus fragment isn't proof of anything. It's nothing more than a statement in thin air without substantial context." Fucking indeed.
That's our entire point, isn't it?
Yeah. You really can't get more not self-aware than that. Of not looking in the mirror by making that statement is just amazing to me.
Thank you, good sir, for explaining my atheism in 2 sentences.
This is one of those things where I read that and I'm like, well, fuck, I gotta post that. Yeah, because it just perfectly explains the entire rejection of, from that, at least from that angle, because there's more than one angle that I reject all of this stuff on. But I just found that immensely funny. I must have read it to myself about 10 times before I actually posted it, just because I was laughing.
I have this other money shot quote that I found. Skepticism is exactly the right attitude, said Francis Watson, a New Testament scholar at Durham University, UK. And it's like, this is what religious people do, is that they're always skeptical about things that aren't in agreement with their confirmation bias.
They start with a flawed premise, and then they kind of radiate the skepticism outward based on that premise. And without occasionally looking at your premise and looking at your premise with skepticism, this is what you get. You get a bunch of skeptics who have a giant blind spot literally in front of their face.
Yeah, and you know what? I saw some skeptics, the proper kind, on our side, on the irreligious side, post this article or ones like it with the same quote that Andy just said. We're going to have one in the show notes from Discovery News. It's deemed a fake. It's, and people are like, well, not surprising. Well, yeah, of course it's not surprising. First of all, it doesn't matter whether it's fake or not. It's from the 4th century.
Right.
And all it does is people then believe that Jesus may have had a wife. It doesn't say anything about the act. It really means nothing. But what I love about this is it's deemed a fake by the Catholic Church and the Baptist seminaries and basically people that really, really, really want it to be a fake.
Yeah.
It's
only
not
people who have a vested interest.
It's not technically not deemed a fake by historical scholars yet. It's made its way into a peer-reviewed journal and it's going to be, I guess, presented at a conference. And then they're going to discuss it. But it has not been deemed a fake by anybody other than the Catholic Church, this Baptist professor and theologian.
Well, deemed a fake is a very...
I deem Jesus fake.
Wishy-washy term. Yeah, it's not a fake in terms of provenance. It's just, is it historically accurate?
That's what I'm saying. All of this really doesn't matter. It doesn't say anything one way or the other.
I don't think a lot of Christians realize what exactly was going on in the Mediterranean area during the 4th century. People had widely crazy ideas about Jesus, whether or not, even crazier than the ideas that we have today about Jesus. He's like part of the Trinity. He's not part of the Trinity. They're all over the place.
It was all very varied before the Catholic Church was able to squash any and all competing sects. It was all over the place. There was the Gnostics, there was the Copt. It was just crazy. And even as today, what are there, 38,000 Christian sects? There might have been more back then or less because I guess it didn't spread around the world. Who the fuck knows? But it was myriad. There was just so much of it. And not until the Catholic Church basically consolidated everything to Nicaea.
It was the Council of Nicaea, and then I think there was a Council of Constantinople by
there was more than one.
Theodosius. Yeah, there was a bunch of them. And they got more conservative, too, over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And they kept chipping away at stuff. I mean, all the Apocrypha that came out of the New Testament, I mean, the Catholic Church, one of the few things I'll give them credit for is they don't really see the Bible as like any kind of literal word of God in any way, shape, or form. They're the ones who shaped it. They know damn well it ain't.
Which book of the Apocrypha is the one with bunny rabbits and eggs?
I don't know, but I have that incredible comic. I think I posted it on Easter of the Easter bunny shitting Easter eggs and little Jesus is popping out of the eggs, and it's all bloody and horrid looking.
So obscene. I love it.
I know, it really is obscene. It's one of the few things where when I first saw it, I kind of cringed, and it really takes a lot for me to cringe.
My favorite line in this article is just that one little, again, talking about the translation and where this document probably came from. And the guy actually says, this is most probably a compositional procedure of a modern author who is not a native speaker of Coptic. I just thought that was so unusual that it was like, the reason it's fake is because the grammar is wrong.
Well, it would be if it was created in the past couple of decades or something as a forgery, just like that the ossuary box that was supposedly the brother of Jesus, James. That was deemed a forgery because they were able to. It didn't actually date to the Aramaic or fuck. I shouldn't say that. It was deemed a fake for whatever fucking reason. But yes, language changes over time, and we know. It's like a piece of pottery that goes in and out of style. You can date things, and you can date language, but it has not been vetted by anybody in the Harvard Theological Review yet. It's provisionally accepted by the peer-reviewed journal in the Harvard Theological Review. It's not gone through any of that yet. The people saying that this is debunked have a very vested interest in saying that Jesus did not have a wife.
Right.
For whatever reason. I don't understand why that matters.
It matters because even though he was fully human, if he required sexual release, then he was still somehow wrapped in with original sin or something. I can't get my head around it because I just don't understand any of that. But
I can see the idea that people wouldn't like the idea of their savior plugging some woman up the ass.
I know. I've been wrapped in original sin since 12.
Same here.
13.
There's a debate to make Christians uncomfortable. when they say, well, sex is for procreation. What about anal?
It's very un-Islamic.
That's how it's deep and dirty. Yeah, so the next thing in the show notes, I have a link for, it's a website called nohomophobes.com. If you open it up, it'll sit there and tabulate the number of times in a tweet that the word faggot, no homo, so gay, or dyke was included in a tweet. And it's horrifyingly a lot. And then, like, just today is 90 times. The brilliant part is you could go last week or all time, and let's just check all time. And it's horrifyingly close to 3 million. And then you get to see the tweets underneath it, in case you want to troll these people, by the way. Anyway, I saw it via Joe My God. That's how I found it. But this got me thinking, when I was in an early anthropology class, I got kind of wrapped up in this theory called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which generally actually isn't really accepted, but I always have. And it's language determines thought.
Yeah, well, that's George Carlin.
Well, yeah, I couldn't tell you if that predates Carlin or not. I'd have to look into it as to whether it wasn't actually like two people that came across that wrote a hypothesis together. It was two separate people, and they just named them at the same time. But anyway, the more accurate version of that probably now is just language affects thought. Like what we say matters and how we say it matters. And it just got me thinking about things that I've changed a lot in the past couple of years, like the way I talk. But I just kind of wanted to get a sense from you guys that has, since you became, I don't know, more socially aware, or I don't know, I guess you could say rational, but are there things that you stopped saying? It really matters.
Yeah, context matters.
Yeah, context matters. Tone, and this is one of the few times where I'll say tone matters. But if you're performing, tone fucking matters. Years ago, I'm blanking on his name, the dude that played Kramer.
Michael Richards,
and his flaming the fuck out and using racist terminology, going after people in the crowd.
Steve, it's okay.
No, you can't. Say it, by the way.
A quick backstory, just to interrupt here, particularly with the word nigger as the word that we're talking about. I have lived with Steve for years and have tried to get him to say it, and it's just tons of fun. But that is one of those particular words that the only reason that I don't say it anymore in just general regular conversation, it used to be part of my regular verbiage, is because it makes so many of my white friends uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'd cringe. No, white guilt.
And not to mention, if we happen to be outside, what if two people overhear us talking and don't know which one of us said it?
All of a sudden, Steve gets blamed for you saying it.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you is that, and this is even though I don't broadcast this on my blog and stuff like this, even though you'll notice it on my comments on my blog and on other places, I am bisexual, but I do not talk about, I don't throw the word faggot around or it's so gay or anything like that, because I think it's just a clumsy word. I'm not fucking Lenny Bruce. I'm not I don't have the word. I'm not a skilled wordsman to be able to throw that shit around willy-nilly and people are going to laugh at it,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I used to say homophobic shit all the time, and again, it was just basically not understanding what it meant, and that's a lot of it. I can't actually sit here and say why one thing is okay to say and why another isn't. Certain things, you meet certain people in your life, you become uncomfortable saying certain things because you realize how fucked up it is. Right. And other things where it's perfectly okay to say it in the certain context. Usually comedy. You could say almost anything if you're good enough. If you're good enough, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, I've done stand-up comedy, and I've been on stage, and it's if you can get a laugh, then you're like a saint. But if you do a Michael Richards, then you're in the shit.
Right, just get right out of town.
Yeah, but context is what determines offense. Using the word nigger as an example, that's one of those words that it is very specifically in context. It wouldn't matter if most of the people that I know or that I'm friends with, if they were to use that word in most of the context where it would just come up. Like the times when people don't want to say it, it's not like somebody doesn't want to say it or is trying not to say it when they're angry at me. They're trying not to say it in regular conversation. They're trying not to say it usually when they're talking about racism, for that matter.
Yeah.
I know that if you say that word in the context of a conversation about racism, you didn't suddenly turn into a racist because you uttered a word. But it's just the way that people think that it's really the essential meme behind cursing.
It's horribly awkward watching people stumble over it when they're quoting somebody.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, well, that's my point. Everyone has their certain hang-ups and things that they can justify, and I don't mean that in justifying in a rationalization sense, in a negative way. I just mean there's certain things you'll say and certain things you won't. I mean, I'm pretty free with cursing, and there's actually not a lot of things I'll say in certain contexts and things I will never say in others. But my point about bringing this up was in the context of the nohomophobes.com. When you do talk a certain way, it's a reflection on what you think. It really is. The way you think determines how you thought, but language usage, I think, is more driving than people understand. And again, I'm not a big censorship guy. I'm just saying it's more of a being cognizant of things.
I think you could be prudent about what the fuck you say without...
That's what I'm trying to get at. You know,
exactly.
You think about what you're saying and in the context of what you're saying it. And a lot of people don't. They just throw these words about, and then they just go, oh, well, I'm not for censorship. But you say something a certain way in a certain context, and you can't justify it. You might justify it to yourself and others who don't think about things, but I think it's really driving the way they think about people.
There's a significant difference between my buddy who's straight, who knows that I'm bi, who jokes around with me about that, and in a good-natured way, and someone who is on this site, being hateful when they're talking about no homo. There's a big difference about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, to some extent, especially when you're looking at a medium like Twitter, I think that's kind of one of those instances where Like that South Park episode with the Harley Davidson drivers.
Oh,
You know, and they're just like,
that was great.
yeah, and they were just basically saying, no, fag doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
Fag means assholes like that guy. And that's part of language change that is a generational thing, you know? So in a place like Twitter, I don't think a lot of those mentions are actually using that word in that context.
I do.
You know, I think that if they were going to be throwing around other kind of slurs around,
Again, I don't know.
who has kids here amongst the four of us? Who has kids?
I think all of us, right?
All right.
Yeah,
No. If your kids are going to shoot off faggot in your house,
Oh, no, that wouldn't.
All right.
Oh no.
All right. See, there you go. That's
Right.
where the fucking.
that's the line.
That's where you draw the line. You know, it's like, no, dude, that's not right. You can't do that.
I work with children, so I hear some of the most creative foul language you can imagine. And
Example. Give me an example, Adam.
my personal favorite from a 4-year-old, best quote ever: "I'm going to feed you to my dick."
Oh, that's awesome.
That
that's a
is-
keeper.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Really?
I've heard that before.
What was your reaction to that? What was your
I
reaction?
thought it was just genius. I couldn't even. But anyway, so there are some words that you recognize as just high impact words, things that are going to cause a problem. The reason for a lot of foul language, and usually it's to accentuate points. And the reason that people consider it to be so obscene is because of the amount of attention that it gets. It's a salient message from a psychology standpoint. When you hear the word fuck out loud in a crowded room where no one else is using that kind of language, your attention immediately goes to it. It's a salient message. So when people lace their vocabulary with those words, it's a way to grab attention, to accentuate their points. So then you then start to recognize the words that are most likely to yield the negative result. In the mental health field, it's words like faggot or retard or nigger, because those are the ones that will incite
definition of
violence.
that word doesn't necessarily have anything. It's not necessarily tied to the impact at some point. That theoretical test with the monkeys spraying each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that the impact of the word necessarily applies to kids using it. They just know it gets a rise. They might
Oh
not-
yeah.
They don't
Yeah,
necessarily know why.
And then it is often that you'll hear something and you know that they have no idea what it means, but they know the effect that it has. They understand that the word has power, and that's what they're trying to capitalize on.
Right.
But
And
again,
it seems to me that the way to eliminate that is to not give these words any kind of special status. But
Have you ever seen that Lenny Bruce bit about how he goes through the crowd? Yeah, that is fucking brilliant. He just goes through every single racial slur possible in a mixed ethnicity crowd. And it's like, you know, the words that you have, the words that I'm talking about, you know, you give power to these kind of words. They don't have any value in and of themselves.
there's nothing wrong with words. It's about the intent. But again, and you know, back to Steve's original point is that the quantification of your vocabulary really determines how well you'll be able to articulate yourself, how well you'll be able to.
I think if anything else, that's probably what's cut down on my swearing more than any other factor is that
Give more words.
Yeah, I've become a lot better at expressing myself with specificity. When I'm angry now, I can say it in 2 or 3 paragraphs and put it on the web, and that's fine. I don't just have to scream at somebody. And
I think I might curse on the blog more than I curse in regular language. I'm not sure about that, but
No, I curse more in regular language than I do on the blog. And I curse quite regularly on the blog.
you do.
You know, I try to use, I mean, in my everyday language, I treat some words like they're like the nuclear option kind of words. And if I don't think I'm being heard, then I will use the nuclear option at times.
well, while we're on the subject of offensive things, let's move on to Blasphemy Day stuff.
Yay.
Yay!
I love Blasphemy Day.
Yeah.
I have a brilliant idea for next Blasphemy Day. I think we should do a fundraising event. We call it Sin It to Win It.
Ooh.
And it's like a walkathon, but for blasphemy.
I was going to do a marathon next Blasphemy Day. I think you're onto something there, man.
Yeah, just, give me a nickel for every time I say God damn it or something.
I think you'd have to be, what I aspire to be is being able to target specific religious groups with blasphemy that really hits home for them, kind of like a guided bomb, I guess. And this goes for atheists, too. I mean, we're not religious, obviously, but obviously anyone who's acquainted with my work knows that I like to provoke people.
Really?
Yeah, the hell you make sense. When I burned the God delusion, I got a lot more responses from atheists with death threats than...
Fucking morons.
You actually got death threats?
Well, there are people who said I should die because I'm burning books.
The ironic thing is that your whole point was that it doesn't yield death threats.
Fucking morons.
There's a lot of morons in the world.
Like, you actually said that in a few sentences on the meme. But your conscience should be clear with regard to confirmation bias when a bunch of atheists start to hate you. Like, you really know that you're you're really coming from a pure place.
Right. It's funny because I went to this Blasphemy Day demonstration in Boston the other day, and I was talking to Ali, and that's his name, Ali, and he is a ex-Muslim who does YouTube videos, and his death threat stories were a lot more impressive than mine, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
He's like, I woke up this morning, and this is normal. It's like people are going to hunt me down and basically gut me. It's like, wow, dude, I feel like a punk right now. You know what was really sad about that day? And I'll tell you, it wasn't the fact that there was like only a very small amount of us. It was the fact that most of the speakers who were there are from other countries. And Americans, native-born Americans, and I'm not telling anything to you guys that you don't know, but native-born Americans just don't really appreciate what the fuck we have here in this country.
Yeah.
There was, I don't know if you saw the videos, but there was like a woman there who was talking about how she got fucking beaten solid by her mom until she was green. And you know what? It's like, I've gotten beatings in my time, but I have never turned fucking green from my beatings when I was a kid, and it was like hardcore stuff. And she's like practically crying. And it's like, and she's from Morocco, she's an expat. And I live in Massachusetts. And there seems to be a lot of there seems to be a lot of Muslims up on the North Shore of Massachusetts who are really on her shit. She is in fear of her life. And this was the first time that she spoke in public.
We do take for granted freedom of speech.
I think that every single atheist, especially liberal atheists, and I know that a vast majority of atheists are liberals. I'm not saying that they're pussies at all. But I'm saying is that they need to actually talk to people who are from other countries with really severe blasphemy laws and listen to them. And they should really be out there on September 30th every year and saying this, blasphemy laws are bullshit and free speech is really the cornerstone of free societies.
Something Nick and I agree on is, I think we talked about it last time, was the liberal relativism makes people blind to the plight of other people.
Right.
It's as Nick would say, liberal pap. They don't understand what other people go through because they just close their mind to the fact that another culture might be fucking wrong.
Just
wrong. Absolutely wrong, 100%. It's good for anthropology, but the problem is that the anthropologists don't drop it for their own personal constitutions or whatever you want to call it. And so therefore they'll just accept anything as, well, that's what somebody else believes, so therefore I have to respect it. You're not in the field. You're not recording something. I don't even know if I could do that, first of all, if I could be in the field recording some society where they do female circumcision.
Well, Steve, it's the question. It's the classic question of what if you were a British officer in like 19th century India, and this thought experiment. The husband dies, and then the wife is forced to go on the funeral pyre and die basically because her husband dies. What do you do? If that was me, I'd just say, rocks are hard, water's wet. This shit is wrong. And I don't have a problem saying that.
No, neither do I. But what I'm saying, most liberals adhere to relativism, and I think they need to get over that bullshit. There's a time and place for that, and it's pretty much just scientific study. And even then, I don't know if I could pull it off if I was in the field for that kind of stuff.
I don't know if I would go with the Prime Directive if I was on Star Trek.
Yeah.
If I was on another,
Well, you'll notice they break it all the fucking time. Right after they go, we can't break the Prime Directive. They break the Prime Directive.
Exactly.
Probably more often than not because they recognize things as being wrong. So the OIC, which is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, urges the United Nations to adopt a law banning blasphemy. This is only a 4-paragraph, it's actually really just like a 7-sentence thing or something. But the end of it is, well, let's just stick with a theme. It's the money shot. Here's the quote. The United Nations and the Human Rights Council must oblige the Western governments to set boundaries for freedom of expression, and that blasphemy will no longer be interpreted as freedom of expression.
Wow.
Fuck you. In as many ways as I could possibly say it, fuck you.
My first thought is, who determines what's blasphemy? Because that's the person with the authority.
Well, of course. Is not believing blasphemy? Right. I know it is a heresy or apostasy, depending on the situation.
Blow me.
Yeah, fuck you. The whole point was to not set Muhammad up as some kind of icon, and they have.
Well, just saying that your God is the one true God, which most of the monotheistic religions say, that in itself is
right.
a specific form of blasphemy.
Saying all religions are equal gets multiculturalism in a whole lot of trouble.
Right.
Well, again, it's relativism with pap. It doesn't mean anything. Of course, it's bullshit. Nobody actually believes that either, except for some weird fucking hippie.
Damn hippies.
Goddamn hippies. But
they'll let you believe everything. Those guys are great. You can go up the Great Weasel Spirit said...
The Great Weasel Spirit.
I liked Obama's response to the whole, blasphemy law being promoted in the UN. And he's like, people call me names all the time. But the cost of having a worthwhile society, and this is paraphrasing, of course, is that people are going to fucking talk smack. And that's all there is to it.
It's a level of emotional maturity.
Right. And I think Andy actually, on that blog post of his, just pointed out like that freedom of speech is better, and sooner or later you're going to figure that out.
Yeah.
Give them like 100 years, maybe, and a couple of purges. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's the inability to be able to be told you're wrong. As atheists in America here, we're told we're wrong all the time, and to tell you the truth, that just slides right off of me. I really don't care.
Well, at this point, because the arguments have gotten so repetitive.
Too, but
first kind of start down a non-belief adventure. You get pounded on all sides, and you learn real quick how to handle those arguments, and then you realize that they're all the same argument over and over again.
Yeah.
Really, that's usually what ends up happening is you have that conversation where you feel like your argument wasn't where it should have been, and then it doesn't upset me. I don't get offended. I just think that, well, asshole, you should have had a better argument for that. You know what I mean? And then I write a blog post about it.
You know what I think is that when I'm talking to a theist or someone who doesn't agree with me, even if I get them towards my point, even like 5 or 10 or 15%, in any one sitting, I think that's a victory in some sense.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even getting them to adopt the thought process by which you arrived at your position, to just say, this is how I arrived here, and showing them the process. Basically giving them an example in critical thinking. Not saying that all of our critical thinking is infallible, but just showing them the process by which you reach your conclusions. You can't leave a conversation like that without taking that process and applying it to the beliefs that you already have. The same way that when you have that conversation, assuming that you're listening to the person that you're talking to, they're going to tell you the process of how they reach their conclusion of being a theist. And we're obligated to take that and apply it to our position as well, as much as it possibly could fit, because that's what a give and take kind of conversation is, and that's what makes us all better for it. But the idea is that if you can promote any kind of critical thinking in anyone that you engage in, you're making the world a better place.
You're right about that. Yeah.
I think what most theists just do not get, no matter how many times we say it, is the majority of us, not all, but the majority of us, at least in this country, were at one time believers.
Maybe you just didn't believe in the right things, Steve.
Well, it's true, and I'm not a good enough Christian.
Yeah, you didn't believe hard enough.
Mm-hmm. I didn't close my eyes and clench my fists and think and pray hard enough.
Just shit out some faith.
It was
nice. Well, faith is all about the midbrain. It isn't about the higher cortical regions.
No.
Yeah, you have faith when you don't have proof.
So, continuing with the religious protectionism and blasphemy thing here, Epiphenom has an article, The Rising Tide of Religious Protectionism in the West. Both Andy and I posted this on Google+. I can see right here. That's the beauty of Google+. The long and short of this is a good article and people should read it. And if you're not reading Epiphenom, more you should. That, this is mostly talking about Western Europe, I believe, for the most part. But he makes the extrapolation to where it's pretty much the same thing in the States. That the laws are slowly but surely kind of coming to a protectionism for the dominant religion, whatever that may be. And in Western Europe and Australia and the States, that's Christianity. And a lot of this seems foreign to us as Americans, where there's laws about proselytizing, because, for all the crazy bullshit out there, you can go out and say whatever you want and recruit anybody to your wacko fucking religion here. I mean, we don't have that problem, but
right.
It's discussing the overall worldwide trend towards, almost discriminatory practices against other religions, not the main majority one. It's not mentioned in the article, but I kind of would use France as an example.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think you should be able to wear the fucking burqa if you want to wear the burqa, but at the same time, if a woman feels abused, then there should be a lot of state protection against people who feel abused.
I tend to side more on the side of the coin of, I don't have to agree with it, but as long as as long as it's your personal choice and not being forced upon you, you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't harm anybody else.
I think in terms of burqas in particular, there does need to be some point at which the state steps in and says, well, okay, but not here, like for photo IDs.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous to have a photo ID with a burqa.
It's pointless.
Agreed.
So, and that's an instance of where I don't think the state is overstepping its bounds at all to say, no, we're going to, infringe on, or, you could choose not to drive. You could choose not to have a photo ID. You can't vote in Pennsylvania, but...
Well, you can now.
For this election.
They struck it down for this election.
Well, no, it's still in place, but if you don't have a photo ID, they're going to ask you for a photo ID, and if you don't have one, they're still going to let you vote anyway.
Yeah, that's going to confuse a lot of fucking people.
I don't think a police person should get a warrant to look at a woman's face.
No.
I think that should just be like, show me your face, and I don't think I need to go through a lengthy court procedure.
Not even necessarily a police person. If someone wearing a burqa, assuming that the photo ID thing is acceptable, when they get a photo ID with their face on it.
Let's think more like passport than driver's license. It's a little more functional.
Okay, passport. So that person goes into a store and tries to buy alcohol, cigarettes, whatever. Well, then the store owner has an obligation to make sure that the face on the license matches the face that's under that burqa. It might not be a great example because of Muslims and drinking, but something along those lines.
One of the other issues, and I unfortunately I don't remember the details of it. There was a terrorist attack somewhere in the world where the terrorists, essentially the people who I think it was an attack on possibly even an embassy or something like that. In any case, the people who actually managed to get into this building across the street from this place that they were attempting to attack, they were men who dressed in burqas so that they could carry the weapons into this area directly across from the place that they were going to attack. And it took, I believe it was like a day or two to finally just get the ceasefire to have killed or wounded enough of those people to actually be able to go in there and take everybody out. But they actually used it as a means to transport weapons. And that is a very real threat, is being able to conceal dangerous things. And now in a society in any kind of major society where you have the potential for doing that much damage and that much collateral damage, it's, we have all these conceal and carry laws, and it just seems to be incredibly dangerous in that regard.
Well, I would have to disagree with that. My opinion, I would say that the likelihood of that is pretty low. And if it wasn't for that, they would just find something else to do. So it's sort of like it's like banning
trench coats.
It's like banning. That's a good example. Banning trench coats after Columbine. Yeah. Big fucking deal. It doesn't do anything.
Well, you know what I think is the major difference between America versus France, since we're talking about the burqa law and everything, is that American labor markets, and this has something relevant to do with the topic. American labor markets are pretty much freer than there are in France. Mm-hmm. If you're is Muslim or whoever, there are protections. Well, in France, if you have a job, it's automatically like you're in a union. And I know I'm not going to make any points amongst my liberal friends on this, but if you get a full-time job in France, from what I understand of the job market in France, you have a job for life. And that makes people say, if I'm going to hire a guy who has a French name versus a guy who has an Algerian name, I'm going to choose the guy who has the French name, basically. Mm-hmm. So there's an economic aspect to this. I don't want to sound like I'm a Romney supporter. Did I say that? Because I'm not a Romney supporter. but in this...
You like coal. Or you hate taxes and you like coal.
Right. Fracking is awesome.
Fracking is fracking cool.
Awesome.
If you think coal is clean because you put the word clean in front of coal.
I hate those fucking commercials.
We have billboards in Pennsylvania because coal's big down here too. Wind dies, sun sets. Clean fucking coal. Woohoo!
There's no such thing as clean fucking coal.
No, it's an oxymoron.
No.
Yeah, it's just not there. It's a myth.
That's one of the few places where Arizona all of a sudden takes a hard left. Just like red state. Wait, solar energy? Huh.
Yeah, you guys, it's abundant.
300 days a year, man. Let's go.
I just want to say, since I think that we're off the roll right now, is that my wife came out and she looked at my rum and she's like, Andy, do you think you've had enough to drink right now?
Oh, speaking of which,
That just made it in the podcast, by the way.
Awesome.
we're still on the record for a
Hell,
second.
that's
Let
the
me
title.
Andy, do you think you've had enough rum?
Yeah.
Adam, I know you wanted to talk about the UN vote allowing gays to be executed and then dropping down to California.
Yes, I do remember saying that vaguely. I just had no idea when. Damn it.
Damn it.
Well, the UN vote on allowing gays to be executed is an extension of that OIC thing.
Yes, basically it is. It kind of proves the point that we were saying earlier. Is just that if you're not Muslim, you're blaspheming. So they can do kind of whatever they want. But this is much more comprehensive in that the Roman Catholic Church is involved in Africa, the Mormons and evangelical Christians from the United States have been quite active in the African subcontinent for quite some time, especially in, as everyone knows, Uganda.
I have friends who live in Kenya, and whenever I bring up Uganda, they're like, dude, that's just a bad place. Crazy things happen there.
But this is what the American evangelical movement has wrought there. This is what they've done. And now, apparently this is off of the Network for Church Monitoring, who got it from the New Civil Rights Movement. The United Nations General Assembly Third Committee, UN General Assembly votes to allow gays to be executed without cause, which is, somewhat of a sensationalist headline, except for the fact that it's not.
This is the thing about people in America, is that they really don't understand what goes on in the rest of the world.
No, they really don't.
Because we say things like, that can't possibly happen.
Yeah, that's insane. That would not actually take place. It does.
Right.
When you are ignorant of geography as well as history, you're gonna just be like, hey, this doesn't happen.
And religion, even if you're religious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This article has two pictures. 2 teenagers suspected of being gay executed in Iran in 2005.
Suspected of being gay.
Suspected. It's a picture of them with blindfolds and nooses around their neck right before they're pushed.
The thing is about Iran, and the thing is that a majority of people just don't get nuanced ideas. While the population of Iran might be pro-American, the supreme leader, which harkens to like some kind of like comic book villain, and his theocratic, goon squad is very, it's a theocracy, and they use force to cow the rest of the population into obedience.
Homosexuality is not a human right. It is not inborn. That's from Uganda's "Kill the Gays" bill, quote unquote. Ugandan MP David Bahati.
I have a buddy who lives in Lilongwe, who's in Malawi. And I was reading about how the Malawi president, who was pushing for decriminalization of homosexuality in Malawi, she's pussied out. Basically, said that I'm not going to. I'm going to allow I'm going to allow homosexuality to still be a criminal act in this country, and that's just wrong.
So she pussied out.
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess that's what I'm going to be quoted on saying on that, and that's okay. I'm okay with it.
So on the other end of the spectrum, California passed a law banning gay cure therapy, right?
Mm-hmm. Gay reparative therapy.
Now, this is huge.
But they still allow Scientology.
Ooh.
Well, brainwashing is brainwashing.
What's interesting about this is that I've written about reparative therapy and just how horrible it really is. It's essentially just it's abstinence,
shaming.
Right?
Shaming
through abstinence. Yes. treated very much like an addiction or like a thought disorder. And obviously it doesn't have any merit as far as the psychological community is concerned, but it's so incredibly damaging because of the increased rates in depression and suicidality, and well, it just makes people pretty fucking miserable. That this is who you are is horrible and you need to fix it. So it's incredible that we've gone here in California, of course, the same state that voted in Prop 8, but you at least have the community that that really discusses different types of therapy really coming together and making a stand on this. If we had a props and shit list like the Reasonable Doubts guys, this would definitely be on the props list.
Yeah, and there's going to be all kinds of lawsuits against this, by the way.
Because it's an activist judge, right?
Yeah, because it's not their activist judge.
Right. Now, what I'm not certain of, here's the thing, too, is, let's be clear, this is strictly for children. This is strictly for people under the age of 18.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of limits on what types of treatment you can offer for children under the age of 18 because of consent. And there's certain types of treatments that are, outdated or arcane. Gestalt therapy comes to mind, where you sit somebody in a chair and you yell at them for 45 minutes. It's a type of therapy, but that doesn't mean that it's good. But that's the reason that it's not illegal per se, but it's frowned upon to the point where just no one ever does it. And you could lose accreditations and things like that. There's political pressure to keep people from doing things like that. Seclusion in a lot of areas, or you just lock somebody in a room. You can't necessarily, it's not against the law, but if you want as a facility to get accreditations and you want to get referrals as a facility that does that or doesn't do that, there's political pressure to avoid that. So this is just kind of taking it from a different stance. But it's much easier to pass this for children because they essentially don't have any say in it. They can't volunteer for that particular type of treatment. They can volunteer for treatment and be held responsible to some degree for their own decision about whether or not they want to receive treatment. But when it comes to something like this, it's so involuntary and it's so harsh and has so many traumatic side effects and outcomes that this is just a small step. We need to outlaw the therapy completely, but that's very unlikely because you can, once you're 18, you can.
Right. You're not going to outlaw this. It's like, as you were saying, it's good that it was outlawed for children because that's who's most susceptible to being put through it. If you're a consenting adult and you want to try to go through it, that's your own fault.
And they shouldn't outlaw it for adults, for that matter, for that same reason. Because if this is the direction you want to go, if this is your ardent belief, and this is really, it's a pseudoscience, but
total bullshit.
Homeopathy. Yeah, it's just one of many. If you want to go and get Reiki to Reiki away the gay, you can do that.
Reiki away the gay.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with protecting children from the deleterious effects of religion in this particular manner.
There's plenty of other ways for it to get in and poison them.
Yeah. Don't need another manner in calling it medicine.
And you know what's funny is the fact that, if the parents couldn't pray away the gay in the first place, it seems even doubly absurd to the fact that they have to go to quackery science to try to get their kids quote unquote right.
There's all kinds of irony in that.
Well, it's all the victim blaming, that obviously their faith wasn't strong enough. They weren't praying hard enough. They weren't doing the right kind of, incantation. but it's that thing that you just need more people to pray for your kid. And because your kid isn't praying for themselves, and God isn't going to change them if they don't really want to change from within. And someone else has to get the devil out of your child. You're just not strong enough to do it. There's lots of mental gymnastics that fit perfectly with that paradigm. So, if we want to move on, though, because I love this story. I love it so much, I can't even tell you. The Christian TV networks prepare for live coverage of Jesus Christ's return.
Oh.
I love this picture of Jesus in space. Oh, people, please open up this link and just look at the banner. It's just a picture of Christ on a cross hovering above the earth. It's just weird.
If I was Christ, I would want to be off that fucking cross as fast as I could.
The Superman mythos is so Christ-like. It's just a great juxtaposition to see Christ so Superman-like.
Maybe for whatever weird reason, that's his mode of transportation.
Like the Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
The savior surfer.
I just want to say something blasphemous here. Is that it goes to like Jews to like create the Superman mythos as against the Christians. Is that wrong? Is that wrong to say?
I don't know.
Are you saying that Superman was a anti-Christian plot?
He was not an anti-Christian plot, but he was named what's his original name, like Al-Jal or
Kal-El.
Kal-El.
All right, that's a Jewish name. Siegel was a guy who created
Siegel and Schuster. Yeah.
Okay, these are not Christian names that we're talking about here. If people are thinking that Superman is like a nice boy from like the Mayflower Society, then they are patently wrong on this.
But he is a Christian, though, in the mythos. Now maybe not from its inception.
Ever come up?
There's somewhere there's a blog post that's basically what are the religions of major superhero characters, and Spider-Man's a Protestant, Batman's a Roman Catholic, although I would argue that Batman's a skeptic to the 9th degree, but he still talks to his dead parents, so
Batman is psychotic. Anyone who knows the comics or the mythos knows that.
So anyway, let's back to this article from the Raw story. Christian TV networks prepare for live coverage of Jesus Christ's return. Essentially what we have here is these Christian networks that are featuring a live video stream to the top of Mount Olives, which apparently is the place where they're expecting Christ to return. So there's just like this live video stream to mobile devices, iPads, Androids, Blackberries. You can actually watch the return in real time on your smartphone. I can't tell you how much I love this. I'm a recent smartphone owner. It's only been about a year, and there's nothing I love more than having the entire universe of human knowledge in a rectangle in my pocket. But just the concept that, as ridiculous as it is, that if it were real and you could actually witness the rapture and pull it out in real time and watch it on your phone, that somebody actually thinks this is something that people would want to do instead of running screaming or trying to mind your headphones.
That Penn and Teller need to get on that.
Yeah.
Were you guys surprised that there was like a windmill on the Mount of Olives? That seemed awfully socialistic to me. There's a windmill on the Mount of Olives, and when you look at the feed, there is a windmill going slowly around and around. I found it surprising.
That they would even build something there?
Well, the fact that some kind of God-given capitalistic kind of site there would have some kind of...
at least a gift shop?
There should be some kind of clean coal, I think. Shipped in maybe from Pennsylvania. I don't know. I was wondering if the Christian, group who was filming that would have a soundtrack to Christ's return. What would you guys have for a soundtrack for his return?
Eye of the Tiger.
Dude, that's completely what I fucking wrote down. Rocky 3.
Okay, Adam, you also sent in the I'm spiritual but not religious as a cop-out article by Miller.
This is one of those things where it's just always a subject that's just interesting to me as far as the ultra-liberal New Age spirituality movement that we see. This is by Alan Miller on the CNN Belief blog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that fucking mess.
Really just discussing the whole concept of particularly the younger population having no particular formal religious doctrine, but having this kind of, I know that there's something, whatever feels good, kind of, kind of empty blanket spirituality. He references the mega churches and how they're very inclusive as opposed to having, very specific, strict doctrines. And then he even actually compares it to kind of a loose skepticism, as far as that even that is better than just having this kind of open-ended spirituality thing. I don't necessarily disagree with the premise that it's, I don't know that about it being a cop-out, but mainly it's just because I can't help but look at it on a quantitative or qualitative scale about it's still better. The New Age kind of pap, it's still better than the hatred and the racism and bigotry and all that other kind of stuff. I'd still, and when we get into the Deepak Chopra thing, like even when you get into the real bizarre New Age shit with quantum love, like this actually exists. You can Google quantum love, but like I think in terms of my child, like if my son comes home and he gets off the school bus and somebody was telling him about quantum love, that's still better than someone telling my kid that the frequent house guests that we have over for dinner are both going to burn in hell for all eternity because they're two women that live together and love each other. Like, I would rather have somebody preach to him the bullshit of quantum love than that level of bigotry that is innate in the strictest forms of a lot of these religions.
But Adam, wouldn't you say that if your kid came back saying that, you would reply, what the hell does that mean?
Oh, absolutely. It's just less damaging. That if he buys into it, it's still just maybe it's just not as horrible, as lesser of the two evils. If the world religions were more like that, at least they wouldn't. I'd like to say at least they wouldn't be killing each other, but who knows?
It's like a once removed position from Leon Hersey Ali's saying that Christianity is better in the Middle East than Islam.
Yeah.
You're saying essentially the same thing once removed with Christianity and...
Yes, on a sliding scale.
Yeah. Well, I think, when you have somebody who's spiritual like that, they like to use a lot of jargon to try and make it sound scientific. But if you sit down and talk to them and work out, narrowing down to whatever they actually think this higher consciousness is, you're kind of left with this weird pantheist idea.
Yeah. Well,
the universal consciousness.
And I have
it's psychobabble.
Very little problem with pantheism on a whole. It's just, okay, so we believe the same thing. You just think the universe has feelings, and that's that.
Right.
And
fine,
and pantheism is wholly inept.
Yes.
Or impotent, I should say.
Yes.
It doesn't do anything. I mean, hey, let's worship the universe.
Right. Pantheism essentially says, there's nothing the universe can do about it, something bad happening to you, but we promise it feels bad about it.
Yeah, that doesn't really...
if you're up to the universe, you'd be happier.
That doesn't really affect the cost of milk in my
exactly.
Quickie Mart in any way.
Yeah.
It's a benign, unsubstantiated claim compared to these potentially or literally harmful unsubstantiated claims that have wreaked untold havoc.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, and I'm not a Hitchens scholar by any extent, but I would say that it's just like the argument for reincarnation in some way, is that if there's an all-benevolent deity out there, omniscient, omnipotent, and then everything's okay, that means that whatever you're doing is, if you have something happen to you, then it's your own fucking fault. And that doesn't strike me as right in some kind of deep moralistic way.
Oh, and then finally, Deepak.
That fuck.
Yeah, so he's got a new book out that he's been plugging.
I had more difficulty listening to him than I did to the debates. And that says something right there.
I wanted to write things down just so that I'd be able to talk about them, but I couldn't even. I couldn't.
You can kind of just make something. There's a Deepak Chopra quote random generator.
Yes, which is perfect.
It is amazing.
And it is on a past FLD somewhere.
No, well, and I will put it in the show notes because what I already have in the show notes, while forgetting that random generator at first, I just read something that somebody retweeted of him, and it just got me so pissed off that I made my own hashtag for him called Quantum Jazz Hands.
I saw that.
And I just started saying random bullshit, and then I actually stopped when I remembered about the generator because I was clicking on it and going, wow, this is really it's all nonsense. The universe comprehends the quantum entanglement of belief and choice. Trust your spiritual brain. That was the first one I put, the random generator. Yeah, I did. I watched the entire video, and Adam, I had the same inclination to write down something to be like, okay, well, I'm going to pick this apart. And then it just got too depressing and confusing because he didn't say anything.
We should mention that we're talking about his appearance on MSNBC's The Cycle with SE.
Oh, yeah. You very much want to point that out because SE Cup is one of the hosts of that show. I honestly think, and you know what? This might be the only thing I ever say where I give her credit. I think that she, during this interview, if you kind of look at her body language and the way she's responding to him, I think even she is just like, what the fuck ever, dude.
She grits her teeth and it's like, I gotta get through this interview.
Yeah. Because, she is the living embodiment to me. I think, I don't know if we discussed it on the podcast before or not, of the exception to the no true Scotsman fallacy.
Yes.
I think she's a self-hating atheist that just really, really fucking wants to be a Christian, and she might actually be a believer of some sort. I could be completely fucking wrong about that.
I'm convinced that it's a caricature.
I think she's a
Marilyn
capitalist.
Manson.
Yeah. She saw an opportunity, and
exactly. That's exactly right, Andy. She's a capitalist, and she saw how she could exploit that line.
And the best part will be when she converts to some benign form of Christianity.
Yeah, they'll make a big deal out of it, like Leah Labresca, whoever they never fucking heard of before that story.
One of my finer commentaries on Deepak Chopra is every time he says the word quantum, I mentally say the word Smurf. and it's the gift that keeps giving. So
it is now dark energy. It's not like quantum anymore.
Has he gotten off the quantum kick?
Oh, dude! If you saw the last video, he's all about like dark energy.
Yeah, I did watch it. I guess I tuned it out more sooner than I thought I did.
Well, his new buzzword is no longer quantum; it's now dark matter and dark energy.
And that's only because there are too many people now who understand what quantum means.
Right.
So he has to move on to the next element that we don't understand.
I had a lot of difficulty. I think it was like a 15-minute bit, and I had to stop like 4 or 5 times to like write down the notes about how much this guy is full of shit.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like when I transcribe a Right Wing Watch video. It takes me forever because I'm just like, holy fuck.
I don't know how you do that without getting nosebleeds.
I have one in the LH inbox right now for a whole brand new David Barton Card Fest. There we go.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, here. There's a transcript of this Deepak interview.
Oh.
So let's. The choice quote I'm looking at is, "God is the cosmic mind in which there's a nanotechnology workshop that creates the universe literally."
I heard that.
Okay.
That's painful. Well, I think...
Yeah, they were running out of
steam.
Running out of booze.
We do want to put in the...
My rum is empty. I just have to tell you that. I had a very large bottle, and it's gone.
Well, everybody, that's it for us this week. But thanks for listening. If you'd like to submit questions, comments, etc., you can find us on email, lefthemispheres@gmail.com, at Left Hemispheres on Twitter, Left Hemispheres on Google+, Facebook, anywhere else you want to look for us. We'd like to thank Andy for being on the show this week.
Woo-hoo!
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
And
I'm glad to make trouble where I can.